Hi, my name is Dr. Christina Rahm, and I'm the founder of Under the Red Chandelier. I've worked for the pharmaceutical and nutraceutical industries. I've worked for governments and corporations, but I still have this burning passion when it comes to music and art and fashion and design. And I realized I have a lot to share. I want to share the travel, the fashion, the art, the music I grew up with, as well as what I've experienced. As I traveled, I picked up different colors and different designs and different things that I brought back. In today's world, we have all this conflict. It doesn't matter what their religion is. It doesn't matter what their political view is. For all the creators out there, for all the scientists, from all the artists, for all of you guys, come join us on this series. We're here to connect. We're here to learn. Tell me the name of the art gallery.
Well, it's Clint Eagar Gallery / Studio.
And you're in Franklin too, right?
Well, I was in Franklin because what happened is I've got so many clients that have come down from that region, Kentucky, and that in that area, in Tennessee, that would come down and they have homes here. So what would happen is they would want to decorate their homes with my coastal art, and then they said, well, I also want to decorate for my farm or my home back in Tennessee or Kentucky. That's a whole different theme. And the thing why it works so well is because I've got such a diverse portfolio of work. I've sold to Del Mar, California, all the way up to Cape Cod.
Yeah.
Different people, because they all come down to the area from different parts of the country, and they come in and there's something that appeals to most people. So they just, they cherry pick what they relate to or what they're decorating for at the time. So I have a lot of fun with it, and that's how I landed up doing a lot of work up there. And so what happened was, so many people kept on telling me about this little town Franklin and how cool it was, and it's got the historical, Civil War aspect. And they said you should definitely have a gallery there. But the problem is, Main Street is where it's all happening, and there's just no space.
There's not.
There's not. And then I actually went door to door into the stores and met managers and the owners of some of those little stores, and I said, how long have you been here? What's the history? What's the area like? Is there anything available? And all I could find at the time was a small little space that was becoming available in the back of a store that already existed there for 15 years.
What was it?
It's a craft store. It's all handmade products in Tennessee. So that was the problem. Is I've got larger fine art, and then you've got small little knick-knack type of items, $12, $13, $8, those types of things. And so it was just the wrong clientele, and I was in the back of the store. But I thought, I'm just going to do it anyway, just so I can get some exposure in the area. And I was very interested in the factory. The factory's right there in Franklin, but that it was under the old ownership. And as soon as I kind of decided to pull back here, because my workload is so heavy, a big conglomerate in Nashville bought the whole building.
Yeah.
And they're renovating it right now, so it would have been kind of cool. But right now, due to all the licensing work that I have, I just can't take the time of saying I'm going to sacrifice 5 days a week, 5 days a month to run up there, do my thing, and then come all the way back. And I just can't afford to do that right now.
Yeah.
So I decided just focus on what's happening here, and it's actually been the best thing I did.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Your name is the same as your art gallery, right?
Yeah.
Clint
It's
Eagar.
Clint Eagar.
Eagar.
It's Eagar.
What is that?
My father was French, Dutch, and German, and my mother is all British Isles. It's English, Irish, and Scots. So I'm really a hybrid. But Eagar is obviously from my dad's side. But many people always want to say Eagar, and it's not G-E-R, it's G-A-R.
G-A-R.
So it's only 5 letters, but so many
Yeah.
people have a hard time saying it.
Like me. I get it now, though. Eagar.
Yeah, Eagar. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What you say is very easy to say.
So your studio's here in Seaside or Watercolor?
Actually, I'm right in Grayton Beach. So it's Santa Rosa Beach, but it's Grayton Beach, and right almost on the corner of 283 and 30A. So it's in that complex, Uptown Grayton Circle, and I've been there for over 5 years. So it's I've kind of got a little following now, and space is tight. I wish I had more space because my line has grown a lot. But it's worked out really well because I've got the restaurants in the morning, restaurants in the evening, and it's kind of a constant flow through there. So.
Well, we have an audience in about 67 countries. We plan on 110, so hopefully we'll grow some of that for you.
Oh, that would be fabulous. It's interesting because the last Safari Club International show, when I was there in Las Vegas beginning of this year, they had a group from one of the educational art programs in the UAE, and they came to the show to try to enhance artists like myself to come visit and do some type of workshop or something. And I said, it sounds great, but I can't, I don't even have the time to try to think about, putting something like that together. But kind of wish I did, because I would love to do something in that area.
I'll have to hook you up with people. I ended up being exposed. There's a group called EVA. It's a European Women's Association, but I'm the ambassador to the United States. So the European Union, all the different countries are a part of this. And Yo-Yo Stark is a good friend of mine. She's over the entire society, and we do a lot. Like we just started it's called the First Ladies or First Wives. It's prime ministers, presidents, and sisters of or prime ministers, presidents, and kings, and their sisters or wives. And they have like 17 right now that we're working on. We're actually doing a thing in Indonesia, but they really bring these women together. But then we end up working with, mostly men. And so Abu Dhabi and Sharif and Dubai, I met with their, ministers of finance, ministers of economics, all of their different main people.
Makers.
They love to bring in scientists and artists. They really do.
Wow, I'd love that.
Yeah. And there's all kinds of opportunities. So I will make sure I connect you with some of those people. They love bringing talent to the country, and they will support it financially.
Is that so?
Yeah, they will.
No, it's always interested me because they so linked to Africa, because you see people there that have falcons and cheetahs and all these African animals that they just love. And that's really where my focus has been, is that wildlife. And, my connection from South Africa myself, and just, seeing a lot of things that have been going on there and what their interests are. I think that I would love to be able to expand in that direction.
They would love that, because the falcons, I'm sure you know this, it's like, I guess like horses are here for the Kentucky Derby. The falcons they will spend a lot of money because they're sacred animals to them. And if you look historically, I'm sure you know this, they did a lot of things with the falcons that really saved worlds, because they're so smart. You can train them to basically communicate and tell you what's going on. So they use them during war, and they use them during their, coming in and taking over countries and doing different things. So, but I have to say, the people there have been extremely nice to me, extremely kind. They really do want to attract the right kind of people to the country. But then it's what you make of it. You have to, if you do anything wrong, if you, it's 24 hours basically surveillance. So if you do something that's not good for their society or for any society, then you're not there anymore. And there's no homeless. Like if you said to me, can you see...
We should have those rules here.
I know. I asked, I said, why aren't there any homeless? And they take care of their people.
Yeah.
So everyone in the country gets free bread. So they have free food for anyone that wants it. But if you don't have a job or you don't open a business and contribute, you can't stay there. And
I like it.
Yeah,
you'll never
see anyone that's not taken care of, and which I love, because I've been to countries, I'm sure you have too, where that's not the case.
Oh well, without a doubt. Being raised in South Africa and going all around the country, and then traveling to Asia a lot, and I've lived in Australia, I've lived in the UK, and Canada, etc., and I've lived in Taiwan and southern China, but I've never seen poverty in my life like I did when I was in India, like in New Delhi and places.
Oh yeah, it's horrible.
When you see a lady on the side of the road sitting on a pile of dung patties and she's selling it for firewood, it really puts things in perspective for you. So definitely it's good to travel and see those kinds of things.
Yeah, I've been to countries where I see children that are, living in the trash, or children not taken care of. And it just really makes me question what's going on, because you have these countries, and I do think the United States overall, we take care of our children the best we can. You can't personally parent every child.
No, the States is very good at really giving, especially giving internationally and having organizations. I think the trouble comes in is when you see those donations given to third world countries where it's manipulated or it's absorbed, and it doesn't really help the intended, and it's not regulated in a proper manner. I've seen a lot of that type of thing.
I have too.
Yeah.
I don't really understand it. I think that's been, people think when I travel that it's lots of fun, and the truth is I go into countries and I work the whole time. In fact, I went to Dubai twice and never even saw anything in the city. I spoke at conferences, had meetings in the financial district. Never went to the water, never saw anything until the last time I went back because I'm just
You're
so
busy. Yeah, you're focused on the schedule.
And the only reason I did last time is because their governments arranged it in each city, and the European Women's Association arranged it, but I wouldn't have, because I just feel like there's so much to do. Our mission is really, my mission and our mission is, it's to help people all over the world from a health and wellness perspective. But I believe art and music and fashion and food and all of that is part of mental, emotional health.
Yes,
and
yes.
I really do. I also believe that, which is where the Under the Red Chandelier came into play, because I believe that if you can't be happy in life, it doesn't matter, what you're experiencing. And I've seen people that are extremely poor, but they're happy, right? Because they experience the beauty of an eagle. They experience being outside. And then I've seen people with extreme wealth not be happy. Yeah.
No, I agree with you. I've experienced that myself in a tremendous way. I mean, I tell some of my American friends how I grew up in South Africa when I was a kid. I mean, we didn't even have TV.
Yeah.
I used to listen to detective stories on the radio on a Friday night, and I used to play outside. I had no shoes on. I was bare feet, a t-shirt and shorts, and I was playing out in a 3-acre banana plantation, building forts and fishing in the river.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't imagine doing anything else. It was so natural and so wonderful. And we just pick something off the tree, and everything was organic.
Yeah.
That's just the way it was,
Yeah.
But, getting to the point of what you're making there, on the art side, currently what I've been doing right now with a lot of my work is I've been trying to get it associated with conservation.
Wow.
So even the horse paintings that I'm doing right now, I'm working with like the Wild Horse Warriors out in San Wash Basin, Colorado with Cindy, and she's trying to work with the Bureau of Land Management. So every painting I sell that's horse related, I donate 30% to her charity. I'm working with Jennifer O'Neill in Nashville, who actually also she works with the vets, and she has a farm out there. And so I've started to do a painting that, I'm going to work with her, and every one I sell, I donate to her. So even with Safari Club International and some other organizations, even the big park here in Jacksonville, I have a lot of my artwork there. It's a big, massive conservation park, and they have my work in there, and I always donate back to that. So I'm at a point in my career now where I actually want the work to have some meaning behind it. Yeah. And I was on the phone with Ashley Avis, who filmed Black Beauty for Disney in Cape Town.
Oh, wow.
And she did a movie about the plight of the wild horses at the Sundance Movie Festival. And so I'm doing some paintings that I want to, contribute to her organization. And she actually invited me out to have some paintings on easels in the opening of her show. And it just didn't come about. I was just too busy. And she was busy running around like you. She's always running around doing shoots and things. So that's really what I'd love to do. And when you mentioned this whole thing with the Middle East and certain organizations like that, I would be very much and very supportive of creating lines that would be associated with a certain organization, if it was a women's group or if it was conservation in the UAE or Northern Africa or something like that, where someone might be able to carry a line and then part of it would be donated to whatever that might be. I'm really behind something like that, because I don't want to just paint pretty pictures and sell them to local people that come around. It's fine, but I want the work to have some substance to it.
I love that.
And that's, I mean, it's, being raised in South Africa and seeing all this beautiful fauna and flora, I mean, I just can't think about, hey, I'm just going to kill it because I can. Yeah. It's to me, it takes more power not to kill it. Yeah. And so I want it to have some substance. And so I've been really hungry trying to find places like, the White Oak Conservation in Jacksonville, that they have a cheetah program and okapi, and they've got elephants in now, and rhino, all the rhino. I'm a big rhino guy. I love black rhino, white rhino, and they keep on getting poached till there's almost nothing left. So there's things like that mean a lot to me. So
I'll have to introduce you to a few people. I'm doing some stuff with sustainability in the Middle East and in Europe, partnering with some groups, and then working with blockchain and with different metaverses, because they're taking NFTs of the actual pictures, and they're developing basically models after it. I'll have to talk to you about that later. But there's a couple of groups I really like. That's not a world I'm from, so it's.
Yeah, I've had people push me about that, and I'm just not gonna. I've heard some negative stories with NFTs as well.
Yeah, it's not.
You got to know what
yet.
you're doing.
You do, and then you have to. One of the guys we met with, who I really like, David, and actually there's a couple of them. They started MySpace. Got to meet some really great people that have taken what they've made in the past, and they're doing some really great things with sustainability, with really trying to save the environment, which is where I'm very interested in partnering. Yeah. Antarctica probably won't even be here in the next 5 to 10 years. People always talk about global warming, and I say, I'm not going to get in a political debate about it. I'm not going to get in I'm not going to, because even Clayton and I don't agree on it, but here's what I'll say. Regardless, it's changing, and it's going to affect all of us. And I believe it's because we have so many, we had nuclear war, we used Agent Orange, we used all kinds of pollution, GMOs are all in our environment.
Without a doubt.
And we're not sustainable. Like our children, our animals are not going to have the right food to eat. It doesn't even have vitamins and minerals in it in a lot of countries anymore. And we won't be able to sustain unless we all do something together. So I absolutely can connect you to people that are trying to preserve wildlife.
Yeah.
And trying to help our environment. I don't understand all this stuff yet about NFTs, but here's what I do understand now that I've been to all these meetings. There are some groups that are trying to utilize digital ways to try to connect worlds other than the internet, right? I'm such an artist and a researcher and a scientist. That's not my world.
Hands-on,
Yeah, that's not my world.
The real, yeah.
But I've met some really good people that I've trusted, and I've met a lot of people I don't. Like I would say, it's been.
That's normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably more than any time in my life, because I grew up in a small town, and what they said in my town, that's what people did, and so this has been slowly changed me, I wouldn't say it's changed my heart, but I understand now everyone's different and people have different motives, right? But
it's like my mother, she used to say, Clint, talk's cheap.
Yep.
And it's so true.
My mom used to say, just because you're nice doesn't mean you're kind. I get that. And then she always said, pretty is as pretty does, and you can't judge a book by its cover. So I hear that over and over. Yeah. But what I was going to say is I've been able to decipher through some of it, and I've met some really amazing people that are doing things because they really do want to do something good, and they care. And I'll say, Clayton's parents are veterinarians, and I grew up with an appreciation of wildlife my entire life. So for me, I think people that do care about the environment, they do care about animals, those are usually pretty good people.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, your perspective is in a whole other area, and that's why I think when you get to a certain point in your career, or even monetary level in your life, you think to yourself, okay, well, how much do I need, or I'm comfortable, or what else can I do now besides saying, I'm just going to sit on a yacht and enjoy this lavish lifestyle? Is there some other deep meaning to it, or what can I really do with it? And I can understand why you get some, very mega wealthy people that, they build hospitals, or they have, animal centers that they build in Africa, or things like that, and then you can definitely, see. But I'm with you on all those things. I think it's really important.
Yeah, I think the Middle East is a place right now where they're trying to really embrace that. So I will definitely hook you up with some of the people that I've met that I think you guys would together, be able to help a lot of people.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. To
and
have that
animals,
connection.
because our we always talk about human beings and how things have gotten bad with autoimmune disorders and disease and viruses and parasites. I mean, we have so much more fungus now in people than we've ever had, which is one of the leading causes of death that we never talk about. But animals have it too. And because animals can't necessarily speak like we speak, they communicate. We just don't understand completely what they're saying. But they're really a lot of endangered species right now.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, I just read a tragic story just recently. I think it was just end of last year. They had an article where the Botswana government had poisoned and killed 350 elephants.
Yeah.
So they went around to the ponds and they actually poisoned the water. So you think to yourself, elephants aside, which is a tragic situation right there, what about the water base, the other animals, the birds, and the base of all that entire area? What's going to happen with that toxic stuff that's in those game parks.
It doesn't
You know?
leave. So what people don't understand is when you do that, it doesn't leave the stratosphere. So people think that when you put those things on the ground or in the air, you know, I remember being a kid and the planes would fly over our farming community, and I remember playing in it because it was cold, right? And they would spray the fields with this pesticide. The problem is, unless you do something that can go into the air, the water, and the land, that isn't broken apart. That stays in our environment, and then it's passed on to people, and then to the children. And now they have all these studies where they're even finding plastic, you know, in people's bloodstreams, and it's real. It's just hard to talk about because you want solutions instead of.
That's a whole nother scientific, medical, you know, whole side of it. That's a whole different dimension. Yeah, you can talk about that for hours and hours.
But it's negative. So what I try to always say is, let's find solutions. Let's start where we can, because it just.
Well, I can see why groups and governments would love to have someone like you be able to spearhead the way, because a lot of organizations just don't, you know, they can't visualize on how to tackle that with their culture, their religious beliefs, or whatever the case may be. And it's interesting, some of the movies that have come out, you know, through Hollywood that are kind of related to that in some particular way. But you know, I think it's interesting watching a fellow South African like Elon Musk talk about, you know, he just talks about it like it's nonchalant, saying we've got to go to Mars, you know, because we can't keep on sustaining on this one, you know, piece of dust in the galaxy. We got to start venturing out, because the way we eating and chewing everything up, you know, everyone's going to be, it's going to be the scorpion and the ant's nest when things start to run out and run out and run out. And it's true. The way the population planetary is growing, it's you know, we're living in the most exciting time in history right now, with all the innovations. I mean, AI and everything else. You know, I see what happens with artwork. You know, I'm old school where I hand do everything. Where now everything's becoming digital, and you know, you see some of the things that are going on, and it's cool, but I think there's still a great desire from a lot of people to have something natural and something that's you know, done in an organic way. I said that because I'm doing a lot of talks right now, and I'm like, we still live in this world. Like, no matter where we're going to be in 2030 or 2050, because I know I've worked on a few projects and have been exposed to some things with Mars and the Moon and how to live there and how it will be sustainable, and it can be, which is the most bizarre thing, but it's very expensive. It will be very few people, so if that's what they're planning, there's not going to be a lot of people that will live, and so and it'll be a one-way trip.
It's a one-way trip.
Yeah.
And you
it's
never
like a
know.
sci-fi movie.
Yeah, it is. But if we could just protect our environment, you know, and just like all step in and try to help, is what we really need to do.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's hard not to get into a political conversation on a global level, because when you travel a lot and you see countries like you know, China, and the way they produce and all the factories and all the pollution there, then we try to be clean here, but yet it goes in the environment and it just spins around the globe in the air. You know, it's like the tsunamis in Japan, where you see all the plastics wash up on the beaches in California. You know, I mean, it just goes across the ocean and it goes to the other side. So, you know, it's just like the green movement that they're pushing right now in the States. It's, you know, or the oil crisis. And it's actually true. You say, okay, well, you don't get the oil from the ground in the States, which is the cleanest process, but you're going to go to another country, pull it out of the ground, which is filthy, pollutes the world even more, and then you're going to export it back to the country that really needs it. I mean, you know, you spin your head. It's just so ridiculous.
It's unbelievable. That was one of the patents I wrote, was detoxing the gas and oil and hydrogen. And being able to make it more sustainable, basically go 30 times longer, because if you can clean things, it will go longer. But it blows my mind how so many countries and so many people in power don't want the solutions, because it's like this trade.
Systems are corrupt, though. You see, this is the problem. And I've seen a lot of it overseas too, where you know, when I had my previous operations in southern China, I took my staff. I had about 110 staff members in my facility in Dongguan, China, and I'd take them on little field trips, and I would come into the country and we'd say, okay, we're going to take a little break, and we'd hire a couple of tour buses, and we're going to go to some beautiful mountain areas in southern China that you love, and we'd go. And you'd go on top, and they were so proud about the area, and they'd try to tell me all about it. Then I would see another bus come off with another group of people, and they're all young people in their 20s, and they all had their plastic, they were drinking water, and they would just toss them in the bushes and in the river that they came to see. So you go, you've come here to see the beauty, and you literally, hundreds of you are just throwing your trash and your garbage all over the site that you claim to me that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And you just go, it's like the consciousness is not even there. They're not raised to that same level of awareness of what they're actually doing, because everything is now. Everything is how can we generate money from whatever we need to do, and the environment can come later. And that's what's happening into a lot of places. And what's happening too is you see a lot of the third world countries that are heavily impacted by this because they don't have the infrastructure of rules and regulations to manage it.
Yeah, there's no way they can.
So outside influences come in and they can, the mining, the fisheries, things like that.
Yeah.
So, I loved watching a lot of the, when I was a kid on TV, the Jacques Cousteau shows and Attenborough and all his wonderful nature shows. I mean, how can you not be intrigued by it?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that's influenced my art and trying to bring some of the nature of beauty, into, on canvas, into your home, to look at it, to experience it, and to feel it. And I think that's why I kind of focus more on the hyperrealism, because it's not just some kind of loose pastel or oil painting that's rough. It's more like, there it is, that's the real thing as it was captured, and it's got its own beauty, it's got its own soul. Let it bring it into your life, because if you're not going to go out there and see it, you can live in your high-rise condo downtown Chicago, but you can have a bald eagle painting in there, and you can still say, I want to go out and I want to go to Yellowstone, I want to go experience those types of things. It's just little bits, little pixels of levels of relationships and experiences, because it's a piece of light you're bringing into your home, into your surroundings that impacts you, So.
It's beautiful. I want to see more of it. I need to come to the gallery and look at everything.
Well, see if you have a little bit of time before you run out of town, before you leave, Santa Rosa Beach. And I'm just down the road.
What's your favorite thing to paint, or your favorite animal? Because you paint more than just animals, right?
Oh gosh, I paint sports cars. I paint people's, landscapes, seascapes. I do, you name it. I paint everything. I have people that come along, and I had a gentleman come in the gallery. He says, Clint, I've got my childhood home in Michigan from the 1960s, but I own 3 muscle cars. Could you paint them in the driveway and do a painting? And I'm like, well, of course I could. I got a gentleman up in Dallas. He's got a couple homes here in Alice Beach, and he's got a Mercedes-Benz collection. So he says, could you do a portrait of, my first car? So I went to his house, 10 o'clock in the morning. I shot a picture of his house with the 10 o'clock morning lighting. Then he brought his AMG GTR. We put it in the light, 10 o'clock in the morning. I shot the car, and then I did the car in front of the house and did a painting of the car. And then every year he'll bring a different car, and I'll do a portrait of all these cars. But I love it because it's technical, it's different. And I had a gentleman that walked in. He says, Clint, I own a World War II P-51 Mustang plane. I'd like you to do a portrait of my plane over the Emerald Coast. I'm like, my gosh, I'd love to do that. Yeah. And then I have people come along and say, can you do flowers? Can you do a seascape, near my home here on 30A? Commissions from Safari Club International, all kinds of things. But I like it because it keeps it fresh for me.
Yeah.
I don't want to say, hey, Clint's the artist that does, he does botanicals. He's the flower guy. I really don't want that. If I said I'm going to run up to Dubai and I'm going to do a commission for the government that has, oil rigs and it has animals sitting in front of it, that's the nature of the animals in Africa, but it's right near, whatever the case may be, a lake, someone's log cabin. I love that because it just makes me tackle a new type of project. So usually what I'll do is I'll do 5 or 6 pieces in a collection, and I'll say, okay, I'm done with that. Now I'm going to take a 180 and I'm going to go do some sculptures.
Of
or
course,
I'm done with
you're
that.
an artist.
And now I'm going to do watercolors.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun now because I've got a wonderful woman I'm working with. Anita Thomas is my agent out of Canada, and she's done a lot of work with Disney. So she just did the licensing work for Dr. Pol on Disney, the vet.
Oh, wow.
And so she's very connected with them and the National Geographic and organization. So she's my agent now. She represents me in my work. So she's getting a lot of licensing work for me. But I love it because I get so many different projects. It could be a puzzle company in the UK. We signed a deal with Visa to have my artwork on a Visa card. And then I'm working with P&B Textiles out of Rhode Island that does quilting and pillows and blankets and things, and they've just published a lot of my watercolor baby safari animal collection, you know, and now they want to do a baby farm animal collection, all in watercolors, and they're having a wonderful response to it. So I just love that kind of tackling some new types of things, and it just keeps it, you know, keeps it fresh.
That's amazing. That's really awesome.
I think if you came by the gallery, you'd enjoy it. See, you know, different things.
Yeah, I meant to go yesterday. I'll go by.
Yeah.
I'll come after this so I can see everything.
Yeah, but Instagram, you'd enjoy it on Instagram because you can actually see me creating things. I've got videos of me in safari in Africa, you know, taking videos of pictures of elephants and things, or drawing, you know, scenes on the savannah. So it's a lot of fun.
Well, I'll connect you. So when I go back to Dubai this time, one of the individuals I work with, Lauren, is from South Africa.
Ah.
And so she's doing the sustainability, one of the different things where they're trying to save the rainforest, and they're trying to save different, basically, places throughout the world which are being destroyed.
Yeah.
So I would love, and she tells me stories all the time, by the way, about South Africa. That's been interesting to learn from her. She's an amazing person.
Well, you know, we felt so blessed being raised there, especially I lived there when it was just incredible. In the 70s, 80s, it was just fantastic. And, you know, just super clean. I mean, the air, the food, the quality of life, the standard of living, and then, of course, the game parks. I mean, you know, I was going to Kruger Park when I was a little one. So I feel now, you know, you go to New York City and you'll see kids playing basketball in a cage concrete pad in the city, and that's how they raise. And I go, wow, you know, I'm really lucky because I used to climb down vines down a gorge.
Yeah.
You could smell the animals and leopard and dussies in the bush, and you'd go, you know, fishing with a stick.
Yeah.
And everything was just natural. It was like Tarzan movie, you know, living on the East Coast, Natal and Durban area. It was very tropical, very beautiful.
But it changed.
Yeah.
That's what she was telling me.
It's changed. You know, the government politically has changed, and it's unfortunately, when I was a kid, the ANC, which is the African National Congress, was kind of the terrorist group that was funded by the Soviets and everybody else in Angola, Uganda, and they did a lot of, you know, crimes across the border into South Africa and everywhere. So the South African army had to defend that.
Yeah.
Now, guess who runs South Africa?
I know, she told me.
The
I didn't really realize that completely.
Right. So when you have a president that didn't even finish high school, you know, and has been funded by, you know, organizations in countries like, you know, CCP and things like that, you realize what's happening in Africa and the infiltration in there. And that's when the environment really suffers, because it's so corrupted and manipulated that the politicians just let things go, and you have other outside segments move in, and they'll take over mining, and they'll just rape the land and fisheries. And, you know, even when I was a kid, they used to, the South African Navy was always trying to fight off the Japanese fishing boats that would come into South African waters and just try to fish everything they could get out of there. And it was terrible. You know, you had to manage it in a big, big way.
How many years did that take to change? Because that was such a wealthy country. You know, it was such an amazing, and I see these things, and the reason I'm asking is I worry about our country, and I worry about things. I don't talk to my children and people about it a lot, but I don't want those things happening here.
Well, I'll be very, very frank with you. I left South Africa at a very young age. I lost my dad when I was 16. So I had to grow up very quickly, and I realized what I was up against. And I knew my future wasn't in South Africa because I knew what I wanted to do, and I knew I had to go to the States. But I think the big issue that really turned the tide and where things just collapsed completely in a very negative way for South Africa in the region, Zimbabwe and all those areas, was when Mandela died.
That's what she
Because
said.
Mandela kind of held it together, and there was a level of respect between the tribes of Bantu, Xhosa, Zulus, all of them, and they have their own tribal respect in the regions where they're from. When Mandela died, then you have things like what we have here in the States now, is the border collapsed. So now you have Nigerians, Ugandans, Angolans, everybody from Mozambique coming across the border uncontrolled. And it's different than in the States, because over there it's tribal. They've been fighting and killing each other for centuries. So now, you know, obviously anybody with common sense can see the violence that's going on. So what happens? All the talent and all the money in South Africa just leaves. So that's why in 1973 my dad sat us down and he says, I'm sending you kids to Australia. He stuck us on an Italian cruise ship from Cape Town, and we sailed all the way to Sydney, 21 days on a cruise ship. It was torture, but to leave. And then when things settled down, my dad called and said, guess what? We're moving back to South Africa because they liked it more. And they did, but the problem is it's become so violent and so unpredictable. If you have kids in a family, you could be on 30A and you'd have 3 cars surround you.
That's what she said.
All the blacks jump out and they'll just steal everything from you, and you'll be lucky if they don't shoot you just because they can.
Yeah.
So you get to a point where it's like violent areas in Brazil. You go in certain areas in South America, you just disappear and they'll never find you again.
Oh yeah.
So you just got to have some common sense. And so you could go to South Africa now and go on an African safari and you'd be totally fine because you'd be picked up at the airport, you'd be transported to the location, and you can have an incredible time. And I still have a lot of family there. But the ratio of unpredictability is what's so dangerous. And mixed with the COVID situation, that's been the big impact on the animal and game park population, is because as soon as the hunters and the photographers and all these people that come into Africa and fund it, the resources and the money to support game rangers and protection for those game parks disappears because there's no money coming in. So what happens? The poachers all come in and they start devastating the animals. And this is what happens. So you look at organizations like Safari Club International, which is a big show for me. I don't hunt animals, I don't kill animals, but when I got more of an education on how the system works, you see how they go in there, and it's an organized hunting organizations, and they bring in tons of money to have permits to be able to hunt some of the older animals to cull the quantities of animals that are there. But that brings in so much money into the area that they can finance the infrastructure they need to sustain the animal population.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a catch-22, but it's the same thing with Ducks Unlimited or National Wild Turkey Federation. All of them I've worked with, and you see, hunters, they shoot a lot of ducks, but also the money that goes into the wetlands and all those types of things through the federal government is really huge.
Yeah, it saves them to a certain extent.
Exactly.
But it's hard to understand. I mean,
yeah,
it really is. I kind of understand it a little bit from working even in the pharmaceutical industry. We do things that will help people, or we did. I don't work directly with, Pfizer or J&J or any of those companies anymore, but
yeah.
They do great things, but the problem is some of the things that are produced can hurt people too. And it's this balancing act, right? It really is. I just did another podcast where she said something that was really profound, and I've always believed. It's the intention of what you're doing. Do you really have the right intention when you're doing things? Or is the intention to just make money or just kill, right? What is the intention? And that, the older you get, I think should be easier to determine. Unfortunately, money and power and
that's what changes it all in the end. It's the amount of money that gets thrown at things, and I've witnessed a lot of that.
Yeah.
And especially with even my father-in-law, he had a very, very big directorship. He was in charge of all the railroad systems for the whole of Xi'an province in China and beyond. A very powerful position in the government. And he was pressured tremendously to become a communist member, and he kept on refusing. But because he wouldn't play, it impacted everything that he did around him.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't part of the system, And I think in the pharmaceutical industry, you see what's happened, especially with COVID and everything that's gone on. There's so many outside influences that the everyday person just doesn't get to really witness, because there's so many things behind the scenes. And I think that's when you've got to go down that long wormhole of personal investigation and common sense and whose science are you really talking about?
Yeah.
Because that's another whole situation, and you can talk about that subject for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I've always been extremely careful, because I worked in the end in the top levels of those companies, and I was exposed to a lot. And but I've always been the kind of person that I don't want to say something negative. I understand both sides. I really have the ability to look at both sides of why people are doing or why companies are doing things. I understand sitting in a room and strategically hearing a conversation about, we have to do this to get to here, or the company won't make it. Like, I've been in many of those conversations. So I do think I've been able to see both sides, but there's so much of what I've seen that I can't talk about, even to my family.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, it's the same thing, even on a small scale, a tiny fractional scale of what I do in my career, is I always tell people, I go, look, my gallery, actually, it's not about Clint Eagar.
Yeah.
I'm here to facilitate what you want.
Yeah.
And I'm just here to give you what you like with whatever talents I have. So I tell people, if you want a green pig with orange stripes and purple wings, I'm your man.
Yeah.
Because I'm here to do that for you, to get you what you need to sustain my business and make a living what I do. And how do I go about that? Am I trying to overcharge the customer? Am I trying to give them, inferior materials? Or am I trying to stand behind my name and say, this is how I create it, this is how I do it, this is the subject that I'll do, and I want you to be happy.
Yeah.
And so you say, there's the parallel line, which way, where are you going to go, and what dimension are you going to go when you try to get the end result for the customer? Is that your intention, or your intention is to try to, rip off as many people as you can before they discover that you're a big,
just make as much money
and
as,
of course that's not sustainable.
No, it's not
so,
sustainable.
To me, it's really important, like any organization, to, because I'm my own little organization, and my name is very, very important because it's my brand, it's my sustainability, and I've got to stand behind it.
Well, I think that it's so much easier though, like you can stand behind it because you are in charge of your brand. So that's at least a good thing. When you have these large companies or these large governments, I think that's why sustainability is such a hot topic, because we're not sustainable with what we're doing right now. This is almost like we're living. I had one of my children say to me, I've never been through this before, and I'm like, neither have I. Like, this is, we've really hit a wall with how we're handling things, because we've gone after just what's the quickest, like we talk about China, but I also look at the United States and Russia and a lot of these countries, we're just, what's the quickest fix to get what we want, but what about 2 to 3 generations from now? And frankly, most people don't want to think about it, but I think we're being forced to right now. And at least you have a beautiful, beautiful art. I mean, it's just gorgeous, and you're doing something that make people happy and
Thank you,
make people's lives better. Because when you look at something that makes you happy, you release endorphins, and you're, doing so much better.
And it's interesting that you say that, because for I would say 25 years of my professional life, I did industrial design for a lot of corporations, retailers, and importers, and consulted with a lot of the buyers to create products for them. And it's the same thing I was saying, I'll create all these things, I can manufacture them for you, I can ship them for you. So I did a lot of business with people like Costco and Bombay Company and Steinmart and Dillard's and J.C. Penney, Kirkland's Home Stores. All of them used to buy from me. And but you go, it's wonderful, the revenues, the income is fantastic. You're running offices around the world and going to trade shows in Germany, and you're seeing clients over here, seeing buyers from all the different places. But then you sit back and you go, it's all wonderful, but I'm kind of done with that. I want to go back to my essence when I got published when I was 23 in California with my art.
Yeah.
You see, so I go, that's fine, but I'm missing something. If I'm going to spend this much time with my life, which you have a certain amount of years in your life, where do I want to be fulfilled? Yeah. So now I can step back and say, okay, I don't have the 3 offices anymore, I don't have the staff, and I'm not getting on planes flying all over the globe all the time, but I'm in my humble studio every day, and I'm creating things that when people come in, it just puts a smile on their face, and they're so happy to bring something into their life that they want to put in their home, their office, wherever it might be, because it brings light into their life. I mean, I look at that and go, wow, for me to make a living doing that, I've found my sweet spot.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm totally happy now. I feel more in cruise control than ever before. And if I can connect myself to more organizations that I believe in that are even greater, I'm there.
Yeah, I love that. I love the giving back to help wildlife and giving back to help us.
I just need the avenues. I just need people to know who I am, so I can attach myself to that. Not just say I'll paint you another picture.
Well, we'll try to help with that. I do want to give you. Are these for him?
Yes, those are some extras.
So we have. So this is one of the products that it's called Clean Slate.
Lovely.
That we have. You may want to give these to your wife. This is
my wife is all into this. In fact, we bought from Canada, ozone, a heated spa that we have in our bedroom. That we have the oxygen tank and we sit inside it, and it takes it detoxes your body.
Yeah.
We're so into it. My wife's really into it, and so it's kind of our lifestyle now. So if you're doing these kinds of products, she'd be so excited about it.
That's really one of my. I went back to Harvard and Cornell, and I really focused on helping detox things and get them cleaner. I actually studied what made our lives toxic, and I studied
everything.
I studied how they were made, and then what I could do to possibly reverse that.
Thank you.
This is a detox for the face. All of these are natural.
Okay, so these three right here.
This you take 2 to 3 drops starting in the morning, 2 to 3 drops at night. If you do the ozone, it'll help it even more.
So you just drop it on your tongue, or you put it in a drink?
You can do either. It tastes kind of salty because it has vitamins and trace minerals.
Wonderful.
And it has Clint, which is basically a form of a zeolite, which helps the body. But I made it, and I used polarization, I used magnets, I did fracking, I used a lot of different methods so it could go into the body and help the body clean. Yeah. My goal was to make the cell of the body look like a baby cell, because your cellular age is not actually your real age.
Yeah.
So I wanted, you can live to be 120 to 130, but you have to clean your cells, right? And we're so used to just giving our cells vitamins, right? The truth is, not all vitamins are the same.
No.
They have to be sourced. I actually do DNA testing on the plants and the seeds and the roots, and I actually do some DNA testing on almost every product we have, on every ingredient for the parent plants as well, to make sure that people...
See, I'm fascinated by this. If Effie was here right now, she'd be so ecstatic and excited. Well, let me just tell you what we've done. We believe in it so much. Nobody knows this yet. Of course, I'll say it live here on this podcast. We're making a giant leap in our life change. We have a home here in Destin, and we're like 4-minute walk to the beach, and we live in a community, like everybody else. But end of this month, we're closing on a 9.5-acre farm homestead property north of here, and I'm going to buy a tractor. We're going to build a farm, and we're going to do all our own organic plants. We're going to do all our own soil. We have a small garden in the back right now, and I'd say about 60% of all the veggies we eat come from our little garden that we have at home. Yeah. And my in-laws are growing things all the time, and we're always trying to do things in a more natural way. So we want to raise our own chickens and goats and the whole thing. I don't know when I'm going to have time to do it, but we're doing it anyway. But we already ordered the first steel building, and we're going to start renovating this property. It's got a house on there from 1945.
Wow.
Very, but it's already established, land that's been used. But we're just going to completely turn this thing into a big social media lifestyle, the art, the organic living, the animals, the whole thing, which is what we're trying to achieve. And
I want to come see it.
Extremely excited. Yeah, well, it's in Baker. It's just north of Highway 10. Yeah. So literally from Destin, it's a 50-minute drive north, and it's just this land. It's got big, massive pecan trees on it, and it's a friend of mine that's in real estate. His grandfather passed away, and he grew up on the property, and there's 4 siblings, and they don't want to be involved. So I bought it from my wife, and I bought it from him. And I'm just itching to get my hands on it and get it all clean. It's overgrown. It all needs to be cleaned up.
How exciting.
Yeah, so we're already going to start working on the dirt and freshening it all. We want to have chickens and create all our own, manure and the whole thing. I mean, South Africa, I was around a lot of places like that. And the one thing that I think what attracts me is, I'll never forget living in South Africa when you went out to the country, is the smell of the earth. Yeah. And when it sounds kind of crude, but when you go to a game park and you smell elephant dung, or you see little dung beetles rolling, it's so natural in the smell. And when the rain comes in Africa and hits that dirt, and the smell, my gosh, it's just so fantastic. And I kind of want to relive that here, but also have something sustainable, because the thing that really freaks me out too is you hear about some of these food factories and things that are burning down now. Yeah. Around the country, and food supply. And I try to not talk about that with my kids, but I know all about it. Yeah. But you're hitting on the factor of true food sources, and then the quality of it.
So this is interesting. I don't talk about this, but I did the product line. So in case we didn't have sustainable food, I sourced it where I knew that there weren't GMOs, and where I could make organic, vegan, natural products that people could sustain on if they had to,
There's a huge desire for that right now. There's so many people. I look at social media, and it's exploded. on how many people are really searching for a simpler, cleaner lifestyle.
Well,
You know?
I think the people that are educated, that are willing to look into what's happening,
Yeah.
understand. You know, it's easier to bury our head in the sand. I'm one of those people. I don't want to deal with it.
Well,
But
this is too much to deal with. There's so much
there's
out
too
there.
much,
It's overwhelming.
but I do deal with it. I actually started understanding about, I'd say 7 years ago, what was happening, because I was exposed to so much, you know. And then the more I traveled, the more I'm like you. I've worked in China, Russia. I've worked, you know, all over.
Yeah.
So I started understanding, because I would be in meetings, and the way I think, I'm an artist, so I put things together, you know, and I can read through things. So for me, this is much more, and I don't say this a lot, but it's much more than a company. I understand what's happening, and
Yeah.
I just want things to be sustainable. I grew up, you know, on the farm, smelling. I know the smell when the water hits. We had pecan trees lining my grandparents' farm.
Yeah.
They actually had a farm that had. It was an experimental farm in Missouri where they had every vegetable and fruit you can imagine.
Wow.
It was amazing. Then my other grandparents were in Kentucky. They were farmers. So if you ask me, where's your happy place? Where were you the happiest growing up? It was on the farm. And I remember this. It's so odd you say that, because when it rains and it's damp and
Yeah.
and you smell that smell, and you know, my grandparents had cows, we had horses, we had peacocks, they had everything.
Yeah.
So I remember just that smell, and it's odd that you say that, because even, you know, the animals use the bathroom, but when that heat and then the water hits, it's a great smell. I don't know how to describe it.
But it's nature. You're raised in such a sterile environment. Everybody's trying to do hand sanitizer, and you got to wear this.
It's
you gotta do
horrible
that.
for you, by
and
the way.
I just watched a very interesting article by one of these top doctors, Dr. Grundy. You always see him on social
yeah.
media.
Yeah.
And he said something today that I saw this morning when I was getting ready for work, and I've always believed it since I was young, and I noticed, especially when I came to the States, there's such a big marketing on, you know, mouthwash. You've got to sanitize your mouth with mouthwash, and I tried it once, and I was like, my God, this is terrible. It's like pouring alcohol down my face.
It's actually, mouthwash is, most of it's not good for you at
Right,
all.
and so
Yeah.
Dr. Grundy, he said this morning, he says, well, one of the worst things you can put in your mouth is mouthwash. He says, never use it, because it kills all the natural bacteria that your mouth needs. He went into more clinical sides of it, which I didn't
It's
understand.
very true. It's very true.
But it's just one simple thing,
Yeah.
you know? And,
Well, I don't know if you know this, but the United States, so I worked for a company called UCB Pharma Biotech, and they were out of Belgium. We worked on Crohn's, colitis, all kinds of GI. And
Wow.
I only did it for about a year. I actually didn't, it was nothing against the company. I just didn't really love it. But my daughter was a newborn baby. And anyway, I went from there, I think, to Bristol Myers Squibb and HIV. So I worked with different companies during that period. But one of the things in the United States is we have more GI issues and more issues with anything that has to do with digestion than anywhere in the world, because we sanitize everything. So, you know, if a child drops a pacifier, a mother thinks that she has to just wash everything. The kids are eating and they're constantly wiping, but the kids need bacteria. You are born with more bacterial cells than almost human cells. So they're all in your body. So you've got to learn for this equilibrium to work. But the problem is we have over-sanitized everything. We don't let people get exposed to things. We don't let nature take care of itself. You know, natural immunity, we were all against it. And I'm amazed by it, because we all knew, well, you know, as scientists, what was going to happen. And I don't want to get into a political debate about that either.
Yeah.
I wish people would just pay attention and listen. And
yeah,
you don't have to be a
as
scientist.
You said, it's a small percentage of the population that can actually relate to it and knows what's going on. You know, most people are just getting by during the day, and they're going to just, you know, fulfill their needs any way that they can.
Yeah.
And this is why I think a lot of the lower income people around the globe get impacted the worst, because they don't have the luxury of being able to do that.
And that's not fair to them.
No, but I mean, think about it. It's, especially in America, it's very expensive to be healthy here.
It's very.
It
My son
really
said
is.
this, like, if these products, if we could have given them to everyone during this pandemic, then I would have not worried, right? Because
But
we
you
had.
see, but that's the trick, because deep down, a lot of these companies, they don't want that to happen, because they can't make money. That's where the revenue comes in. You know, I'll say something very controversial, and maybe some people might be upset by this comment, but ever since I was a teenager, I remember having a conversation with my mom, and I said to her, you know, Mom, I said, I believe they already have a cure for cancer, but they're never going to release it because they'd lose billions of dollars if they had a cure. Think about all the people that would run out of money, all the research, all the labs, all the doctors, all the funding. I mean, that's just one thing. I mean, think about all the medicines, all the foods, all the products that are out there that get marketed. And I remember sitting on the couch with my mother one day, and we were watching TV here, and she looked over me, she goes, you know, Clint, Americans actually think they're free. I go, what do you mean? I said, look at TV. She says, there's so much marketing pumping fear into the public by saying, you can't do this unless you take this drug. You can't do this, you take this drug. And overseas, that's illegal. You know, you go overseas, especially to Asia and some places, pharmaceutical companies cannot advertise directly to the public like they can do here. You know, it's not allowed. So it's very, very interesting seeing that here on that, you know, on that wavelength. So it's part of you going back to the traveling and seeing.
You see it.
What, what
you
goes
would
on.
never see it there. You would never see it in Europe. You would never see it in Asia.
Look, it's like watching Formula One races. I'm a big Formula One racing fan. My dad was in the auto industry and used to take me to the races when I grew up. But I remember when certain countries, you'd see the livery on the car, but there was no Marlboro cigarette emblems allowed on the car. Yeah. And they went to another country and they could put the marketing on there, depending on the rules of each country. Yeah. It's very, very interesting. Well, that's what's happened. I was
even involved here when the vape pens, you know, when they were coming through, because we knew that those cause as many problems as cigarettes in some aspects, right? But it's all a money. It's about money. And I understand both sides. I've been in the meetings where stock double, triple splits, and I had the stock, you know, double, but it doesn't matter. There's no excuse. And I'm very thankful because I had children, so that held me accountable, because I would think, what if I did this to my kids? And going back to cancer, I worked with a lot of the oncology companies. Yeah. So I have no comment to that because I can't.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I'm talking hypothetically. I'm not saying, you know, I'm just saying it's an example of. There are different things that big interests.
Yeah, because you shelve them because if you put them out and it conflicts with something else. Yeah. And I was in I did investigator-sponsored trials, so I would be able to treat, you know, rare diseases where we would do trials, and they would sometimes work 100%, but we couldn't do it because it cost too much money to launch, and it just became a part of what I had to understand. Yeah. But you don't understand if you have a child that has cancer. You don't understand if you have cancer, and I hope that changes over the next 10 years. I hope that we make some advancements. I feel like there's more people that are waking up because of what's happened, but maybe I'm wrong.
I truly believe, though, because of, you know, I mean, you think about years ago when there was no internet, there was no social media. People have access now to so much information so fast that it's changed the planet.
They don't know where to look, though. Like, if you look now, I'm sure you know this. If you look, you have the television, and then you have.
I barely watch any TV
Me
anymore.
either. I don't watch the news, but you have these podcasts, but then you have. People don't know which one to believe, and people are so used to watching mainstream that they don't want to look at the other, things that exist. So
I just, I'm like you. I just can't take things at face value. I've always got to look deeper into everything. You know.
Well, I think your pictures show a lot of depth. I'm not an artist like you. I paint mostly with acrylics, but I actually have paintings that I use like sand and dirt and
but that's
throw stuff in there.
All the mixed media pieces. Yeah, I mean, I work all in acrylic. My paintings, many of them have an oil painting technique.
I see that.
But I work in acrylics, and I can make them go any direction that I want. I can make them super soft or super, impasto. It just depends what the application is. But
it's amazing. Really amazing. I love this. My dad's a huge, he loves bird dogs, and I actually was the only reason I could miss school was I could go hunting with my dad. He was a dove hunter.
Oh, is that?
Yeah, and pheasant, dove,
Well, I've got a lot of clients that are, I'm on the 5th dog painting right now. I've been invited to exhibit my work at this national show in Thomasville, Georgia next month. And so I've spent months getting these dog paintings done just for this event.
I think Clay bought one, right?
Yeah,
Did
he
he?
did. He actually
For my daddy, I think he.
he did, and he actually.
Sorry. Well, we're not airing this
yeah,
right
he
now.
he bought a beautiful piece.
We'll do it.
But what's happened? I've done 4 so far, and I've sold 2 of them, and I'm supposed to have them for the show. So I'm supposed, and everybody's expecting to see this bird dog collection at the event, and half the collection's already gone. So, and I'm not allowed to take prints, but I'm working on the 5th one right now. So that I'll tuck away so I can take it to the show.
I love my dad, though. He taught us that you never kill anything unless you're going to eat it, and it's going to help, your life be better. You don't just kill things to hurt things. And so I love that.
Without a doubt. Look,
Yeah.
I tell people, I said, look, I'm raised in South Africa and seeing all the beautiful animals, and the hunting's a big thing, and even here in the States. But if it came down to the very end and I had a family, you definitely had to sustain yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see, okay, I'm going to shoot a deer, bring it home, and then it's going to feed everybody for a long
Yeah.
period of time. And if we don't do that, we're going to starve to death.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going back to caveman survival days. It's just the survival of mankind. But to go out there and say, okay, I'm going to shoot 150 ducks because I can,
No.
instead of saying I'm going to shoot 5 ducks, there's a big difference. And that's one thing I love about fishing here in the States. I see a lot of the consciousness of people here in the conservation, even with fishing. You see these people catch all kinds of fish, and you just go, wow, that's fantastic. It's got to taste so good. Nope, they just let it go back into the ocean or the lake, and they release it, and you just go, wow, that's such a powerful thing, because you love the sport of catching it, but you're not going to just massacre everything that you catch, because it's just not sustainable.
Yeah.
And so I love watching things like that.
Well, I'll never, I'm sure, be able to eat the way I got to eat when I grew up, because we had the best food. Because he had 3. There was 3 boys in their family, and my grandfather, who was an amazing man, and so we grew up eating this food that you can't even buy at like a 5-star restaurant, now.
Yeah.
But I always loved how he taught us that you just don't kill things, and I
Yeah.
still don't understand people. I have to be really honest, that go and hunt and kill something just to kill. I think it's actually horrible, to be honest.
Yeah, they try to justify it in a lot of different kinds of ways, but it's different when you come here to the States and you go to a grocery store. And one thing I noticed that happens mostly here in the West, or mostly in the States, is a lot of Americans will eat a fillet of fish. But if you talk to them about barbecuing a whole fish with the head and the tail and eating it and putting salt on it and squeezing lemon on it, eating the whole fish as it is, a lot of them just go, oh, that's so gross, I couldn't do that. And I'm going, well, it tastes the best. That's the way. That's the way to eat it.
Yeah.
And the Asian culture, that's the way they do everything. They bring the whole thing there, and you eat it. So it's a lot different than when I was a kid with my parents. They'd go to the local butcher shop in South Africa, and you'd walk in, and the whole shop was about the size of this room, and everything was in white tile with stainless steel racks, and they would have a rack of lamb, and you could get, and my mom would buy half an entire lamb, and they would chop it all up, and my mother would make roasts and things. But you just got used to that's the way it was, versus little styrofoam packs covered in plastic that had been factory manufactured, and the chickens really
Have hormones on. And
and it's everything's like oversized, and so you just go, there's a big difference.
But you're gonna have your own chickens.
But I think my wife's personality, she's gonna go, these are all my pets, I can't kill one of them, these all, and when they get more and more and more,
But they can have eggs. They can
oh
lay
well, no,
eggs.
that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And of course that's going to be down the road, because it's going to be Farmer Clint.
I do not like seeing chickens
it'll-
killed, because I don't, like, that was one thing I didn't like about being raised in the country, seeing, like, if you make turtle soup, you cut their head off and they run around forever. The turtles.
Well, that's not going to be happening. That's not, my wife, she'd probably chop my head off first before they hurt the chicken. So that's not going to happen. And even if that had to happen, she'd make me take the chickens away, get them slaughtered, and bring them back. She wouldn't let me say, I'm going to do this.
No.
So I think she wants to do it as a farm hobby and feel good about it.
Yeah.
So that'll be
Well,
the thing.
I hope I get to see your studio there someday, and I'll go look at the one that's here.
Yeah,
so
it'd be a pleasure.
thank you so much.
Yeah. I've really enjoyed it.
I have too. I've really enjoyed it.